Welcome back to Question Period. As we've been discussing this morning, the Conservatives just wrapped up their annual convention in Quebec City, while the Liberals are gearing up for their caucus retreat this week. Top issues on the agenda there, the cost of living crisis, housing, and climate change. But with the Liberals down in the polls, Justin Trudeau could be facing a tough audience. Will this retreat be enough to regroup before the House returns? And what will the Liberals need to do to fend off opposition attacks during the fall sitting? Our Sunday strategy session is here. Kathleen Monk is a former NDP strategist and director of communications to the late Jack Layton. Corey Teneycke was Ontario Premier Doug Ford's campaign manager and former director of communications for Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And Scott Reid is a CTV News political analyst and former communications director to Prime Minister Paul Martin. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful summer. Let's start off with the summer, and in particular, actually, the past few days in Quebec City. Corey, I know you're there. You've been attending the Tory convention. The narrative going into that convention was a very positive one for the Conservatives, right? Poll after poll after poll showing that their lead over the summer over the Liberals had grown. Do you think voting in favor, for example, of a policy that bans gender-affirming surgery for minors threatens to derail any of that?
I don't think so. There's a big difference between policy resolutions at a convention and what your platform is. Conservative leaders aren't bound under the system in our party to put that stuff in a platform. At the end of the day, it's at the discretion of the leader what goes into a platform. And you know, I think if you want an indication as to what they're going to campaign on, I think it'd be much better to look at Poilievre's speech, which I thought was right on the money in terms of what issues and what themes they should be going with, and frankly, what has allowed them to open up a double-digit lead over the course of the summer.
Scott, to Corey's point, previous leaders have been hampered by the kinds of things the membership and the grassroots decide from a communications perspective and a pragmatic perspective. Mr. Poilievre, going into this convention, was said exactly what Corey laid out. Basically, I'm not bound by whatever is decided. Do you think he'll have more success at navigating this kind of stuff?
I think he will be less vulnerable than past leaders, but I don't think that it's as insignificant an issue as Corey does, not surprisingly. Look, I still think, even in Pierre Poilievre's speech, I think you can still detect, certainly in the policy resolutions, you can detect the fact that this is a party that's still struggling against itself, is trying to determine, is it a well-oiled political machine that's aimed at winning the next election? Or is it a cause? Is it a movement that's, dedicated to kind of anti-vax, post-convoy sets of issues? And I don't think it's fully resolved. Pierre Poilievre often sends the signal that he is a laser-focused, pure politician. But, cracks show, and they showed at this convention, even in his speech, where he couldn't quite embrace the common sense label. He had to rely on the freedom, again, which takes us back to sort of like the convoy kind of characterization of the Conservatives. So I think they still have work to do there. I think they are still vulnerable. I think Pierre Poilievre is still vulnerable on this set of issues.
Does it depend on how the Liberals try and capitalize on that, and perhaps the NDP to a lesser degree, Kathleen? Because they haven't done a lot of that over the past few months. Over the past 2 days, maybe more of it. But over the summer, Pierre Poilievre had a wide open opportunity to use ads to his benefit to define himself in the eyes of Canadians.
He had a lot of runway this summer for sure, and that led to all the momentum and the enthusiasm you saw at the convention. But I think there is still risks in what happened at convention and the Liberals or the Democrats weaponizing that against the Conservatives. Also, particularly his own caucus, Mr. Poilievre's own caucus. How will members like Michelle Rempel, like Melissa Lantsman, react to the fact that some of these policies passed and that the party didn't do more to manage them down or manage them away from the grassroots? But specifically back to those more controversial policies that passed, I think they have to be really careful that they don't become kind of an anvil around Mr. Poilievre's neck. In the same way we saw with past conventions, Andrew Scheer, the issue of abortion dragged him down, or with Mr. O'Toole, it was the issue of climate change that dragged him down. So to kind of say this won't matter, I think it really is disregarding history and seeing how other past Conservative leaders have been hampered so greatly by their own policies that happened at convention.
Corey, were you surprised that the Liberals haven't talked more about Poilievre over the summer? And what do you anticipate heading into their caucus retreat?
Well, I think the annals of history are going to demonstrate that their decision not to go out with advertising prior to the Conservatives doing so to define Poilievre will be a key moment in terms of what I think will be their defeat. I think it was a huge strategic error on their part not to do so. I'm very pleased that they didn't. But I think the causes of that go much deeper into the fundamental weakness of the Liberal Party right now. I think they probably didn't. The only logical thing that I can come up with, and Scott and I have talked about this many times before, is that they lack the funds, they lack the resources. They with some of that convoy crowd that energized his leadership race also filled his coffers. The fundraising machine on the Conservative side is unlike anything I've seen in my lengthy time in the party. I think it truly is a rejuvenation of the party that's gone on, being driven by some of those folks, but more importantly, I think from an electoral perspective, millennials. I think that the housing message and the message around affordability has propelled him forward with what is, at the end of the day, the largest voting group by demographic in the country today, and that's millennials. So I think they have more money. I think that following these ads, there will be more ads that are promoting Poilievre, and it's going to be very challenging, I think, for the Liberal Party to respond in kind, because I think they lack a clear message and they lack a motivated support base. They have broad support in certain parts of the country, but it's not highly energized support. It's not in any way, in my view, similar to the intensity level that you see in the Conservative Party today behind Poilievre.
Well, the manager, Scott, of the Conservative Fund, the money manager for the party, basically told the convention, in fact, that they are going to increase their ad buy, keep those ads rolling out. You, if I recall, 2 months ago when we last convened, your advice to the Liberals was to do the exact opposite of what ended up happening, was to buy the ads, was to go hard on Mr. Poilievre, to do everything they could to define him. Are you at all surprised that they didn't?
Well, I'm disappointed. I don't know if the answer is lack of funds or a lack of instinct. But I know this, the summer has been a vast wasteland for the Liberals. I mean, really, if you take a look at it, since we last reconvened this panel, and the Liberals are now behind 14 points, the Prime Minister's fallen in terms of preference as the next Prime Minister. I mean, these are big, real challenges. The government is going to have to get its game back. Now, it has the benefit of time. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank God for that CNS agreement, because it buys the government a couple more years. But they've got to start putting the time they have to better use in terms of the focus of their agenda in government and in terms of the focus of their positioning when it comes to politics. Like, if this past summer was a garden, it was full of weeds, not flowers, and they have got to clean that garden up, and they got to start at this national caucus and then really got to work hard at it, because right now Pierre Poilievre is pushing on an open door, and that can't be permitted to continue.
Just saying, there's so much rain this summer. The weeds were everywhere. My husband, who's obsessed with our lawn, will tell you the weeds were hard to get rid of. Kathleen, last word to you. You're a comms expert, as our two other panelists. If the Liberals sat down with you today and said, like, what should we do at this point in time? We do have perhaps up to 2 more years, but still things are not looking great over the summer. What would you tell them?
They're not looking great, and the Prime Minister is about to go into a London caucus retreat, and it's not going to get any prettier. He's got a lot of angry caucus members that are rightfully upset looking at the poll numbers. Half of them kind of want the Prime Minister to speak more like Pierre Poilievre. The other half want him to speak more like Jagmeet Singh. And frankly, Trudeau's answer has been really to do not much of anything, and that's a problem. I would just point back onto the ads issue. My colleagues point out, it's really, the Conservatives have always been more skilled at ads than the Liberals. The Liberals, it was last time actually probably when Scott was in the office, that when Paul Martin attacked Harper. But really it's been, the Conservatives against Stéphane Dion, the Conservatives framing up Michael Ignatieff. Those were the ad campaigns that really had a success rate in terms of defining the opposition. Where the Liberals need to do is they need to figure out their message. They need to come hard with not only a legislative agenda, but also a message agenda this fall, and actually try to punch through. If they're not going to do it on paid media, they need to start doing it on earned media, which has been getting out in the news, and we've seen in the last 24 hours with Liberal ministers coming out of the woodwork.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, everyone. It's so nice to see you again. Corey Tenike, Scott Reed, and Kathleen Munk.